But I think the way they went about it, some think that it looks as though, well, yes, there may be mixed feelings, but distribution, which is what they've privatized, but transmission, the federal government still holds that area, given the nature of it. So if they just let that distribution part, was that too much to have let go of?
Transmission can be held by Nigerians. I am not saying transmission cannot be held. But what do you transmit when you don't have what to transmit? The generation or generating, aspect must be in place first. And that is the most crucial thing. The transmission, it's a common technology which can be available to Nigerians. I am not against the transmission. I am against, bringing in Nigerians. And as you rightly said, the government has now taken a new dimension and says, okay, we will hold on that. And I hope they will now give the contract to companies that are known and respected all over the world in this area, so that we can have a meaningful development. And one thing you fail to realize, and I've pointed it out here, there is a continuation of sabotage of the gas system in this country. The federal government has shouted it, the minister has shouted it, people are sabotaging the flow of gas. Even if these machineries are set up for generating, the gas that will bring them are being sabotaged. And you ask yourself, who are the people sabotaging this gas system?
We should be able to bring them the book, shouldn't we?
You must make an inquiry to see who are the people, because they are not making money from it. It's not like oil, where you go and tap an oil pipe and then you transmit what you are tapping into a boat. Gas cannot be, transferred. Once you fault a gas pipe and you open it, the whole gas just flows away. Who are the people doing it? The government is aware. I am not saying anybody is doing it, but let me tell you this. 80% of the energy Nigeria is using today to generate is through generators. 80% of the power Nigeria is using today is through generators.
Just before we move on to another aspect, a very critical aspect, I'd like to take you back a little to the national conference, because it's one area where the president spoke about, where he says that it was one tangible gift. I mean, if I'm going to use his words, it says the national conference is a centenary gift
I heard him say
to Nigerians. And I do remember that last year when he did set up that Presidential Advisory Committee on the National Conference, it was one solid takeaway from the speech of last year that we worked on through this year. And by this next year, this particular celebration, we already have the resolutions from that particular committee. Are you satisfied with the outcome? Even though, yes, you acknowledge that we did not have a legal framework to implement the outcome of this national conference in such a way that we would have known where we were going before we started out the journey. Are you satisfied as to the resolutions that came out of this national conference? Because one of the things it was meant to douse is all the talk about the system of governance.
Well, we have not seen the published resolutions of the conference. Mm-hmm. I must give credit to Mr. President for setting up. It was a very bold step, and I've consistently mentioned it, that he took a bold step to do what he did. And, as he said, it's one of the milestones of this 100 years of existence of Nigeria. But the problem is this: how are you going to implement? No matter how laudable a project is, it is the end product that matters. How is it going to affect you and I, these resolutions? How is it going to be implemented? He has not mentioned it to us till today. Mr. President has not mentioned. Even I listened to his speech. He only said, look, I have passed this recommendation to the Attorney General to set up a ministerial committee.
Which is a step, a lot of people will say is a step to say that we're going to go that way. But the question is, the resolutions themselves. Are you, for instance, we're looking at creating more states, which you say, should not have been the way to go. You say our system of governance is such that with the kind of money we make, it goes to feeding our systems. Do you think that the conference itself address the issues critically?
Look, when you are going to create states, the conference cannot just say create states, because there is a machinery in the constitution in the creation of states. The conference could not have, even if they recommend, it still has to go to the National Assembly, because the 1999 Constitution is what is the ground norm now. What we are saying, are we prepared to change the ground norm for another ground norm? The 1999 Constitution today is the ground norm of Nigeria. All we are doing must be, hinged on the 1999 Constitution. If you don't jettison it, you can't have a change in governance.
Let's look at the other part. I mean, he did say towards the end that every promise he has made, he will keep. And we know when politicians make promises, because when he said that, people will go back looking through all that he has said, maybe with a fine comb saying, okay, let's see if he said this. But one wonders, is he not setting himself up for something because he knows the implication of that statement? Because, I mean, it's also an election year.
Well, let me take I am not a pro-Jonathan man, let me be honest. But I have found out that genuinely, seeing him and looking at what is happening in Nigeria today, he is going to fulfill on his promise. Because within these 4 years, as I said, Nigeria has made a very, very rapid progress in agriculture. I was listening to the Minister of Agriculture, and I was shocked to know that in Nigeria today, there are, rice farms all over Nigeria that are producing so many bags of rice. I was really sure, and I'm happy. And, also the dredging of this River Niger. If it is finished, according to Mr. President, they've gone to Barrow. If they can now move down, many of this wastage on our roads, of lorries carrying goods, most of these things will go by barges through the riverine area. Goes to Lokoja, goes to Onitsha. So he has fulfilled on those. The third mainland, the third bridge for Onitsha, he has started on it. So let us believe. From what I'm seeing, I believe he will do it.
What about security?
The security aspect is an international thing in Nigeria now. Let us be honest about it. Boko Haram is no longer the local organization I used to know. I was Sheriff's lawyer in Maiduguri in 2004. I acted for him in election, and I stayed in Maiduguri for 3 months. And I was pub crawling in Maiduguri. That time, I would pub crawl, go to the pub, I drink. Not fair. But we were hearing a little about Boko Haram then. But we still had our nights out. But now, Boko Haram has been hijacked by international organizations. For Obama, in his speech in the United Nations, to mention Boko Haram as one of the terrorist organizations America is going to fight shows you the internationalization of Boko Haram. So Boko Haram is no longer a Nigerian issue alone. It has assumed international connotations. And therefore, we all must cooperate with Mr. President to seek international support for the area. But let us give kudos to the federal government. Boko Haram has been restricted to the 3 states that it has been ravaging for the past 3, 4, 5 years. When it reared its head in Kano, the Kano people stood up and said, look, we don't want Boko Haram here. I am aware of that. And the young boys stood up. Every Boko Haram harem they know in Kano, they flushed them out. Today you don't have Boko Haram in Kano. They nearly reared their heads there. So to have contained Boko Haram to those 3 states, we give kudos to the federal government.
All right, that's where we'll have to let it go. We've been speaking with Mr. Robert Clarke, a senior advocate of Nigeria, on our special focus on Nigeria at 54. Thank you for coming on this morning, sir.
It is my pleasure. Thank you very much.
We'll be back after this break. We've got other perspectives coming to you today, so join us again.